Please enjoy this feature presentation of the Crooked River Radio Network. This program is rated for all audiences.
The Nanosecond podcast is sponsored by CrookedRiverRadio.com. Crooked River Radio is an internet radio station that is live 24/7 playing rock and adult contemporary top 40 hits from the 60s through the 90s. You can find us on Live 365, Simple Radio, Roku, Radio Garden, and even Alexa, as well as our website. Come on and join us on the Crooked River.
Welcome to the Nanosecond podcast. With your hosts, Erik Nannarone, Nick Goglioni, and Pat Morrow. Interesting topics, intriguing conversation, and entertainment. Erik, Nick, and Pat will be right with you.
Well, hello and welcome to the Nanosecond podcast. I'm Erik.
And I'm Pat.
And today, we are talking Browns draft with Barry Shuck from DawgsByNature.com and Fox Sports Radio. Hi, Barry. Welcome back.
Hey, Erik and Pat. How are y'all?
We're good.
Doing well.
Oh.
For an old man, anyway. Don't get distracted, boy. Come on.
You were cutting in and out.
Let's go. Come on.
No, you were cutting in and out, so I didn't want to talk over you.
That big stadium.
Yeah, how about that?
What?
You know, you only live once. You got to live in a stadium.
Oh, I didn't even notice that. Yeah. Well,
somebody pass him a beer. He'll be all right.
Damn right.
Starting off, let's talk a little recapping Browns free agency. I know that's kind of old, but starting off with the Delvin Tomlinson pickup, what do you think?
Well, the Browns were 25th against the run last year, so they needed help. And where that started was week 5 against the Chargers. Austin Eckler was a person that nobody heard about till they played the Browns, and he just ran all over them. And then everybody else on the Browns schedule took that blueprint and said, this is what we need to do to run, and is to run against the Browns, have the short passing game. And it was a blueprint. And so for the rest of the year, the Browns were just down, and they were in trouble because everybody figured out how to take on this defense and just run against them. So they had to get new people in. They had to get new run stoppers, and Dalvin Tomlinson is going to be the first one, and he's definitely worth the money. And Jim Schwartz, his defense takes 2 defensive linemen and makes superstars out of them. That's happened with Buffalo. It's happened with Philadelphia. Happens with Tennessee. And he's going to take Myles Garrett and take a second player and make a star out of him, and that's probably going to be Tomlinson.
How about Obaniah Ogerwan? Okay, double O.
Double O.
Yeah, because I can't say.
They call him Oba.
Yeah, Obo.
Yeah. He's had limited starts. He hasn't been he's young and he's an outside edge rusher, and we'll see. I'm kind of expecting Alex Wright to be that other defensive end, but with today's NFL and with today's defenses, you've got to have 4, 5, 6, 8 guys that just rotate in and give everybody a rest. That's the only way you can do it, because that offensive line, they don't substitute. If you got a defensive line that does substitute, then you've got well-rested players. And that's just kind of the strategy today.
Do you see any concern with the fact that he's a little undersized at 6'3", 252 or 253?
Yeah, he's like the old school linebackers of the New York Football Giants used to use, with Lawrence Taylor and Carl Banks and Harry Carson. Today, you want linebackers to be about 221 that can run a 4.5. Yeah, he's undersized, but he's got speed, and if he can get around the edge, then that's. But I think his limited starts is the red flag for me, and we'll just see. But he's going to be depth. They drafted a guy. They got Isaiah Thomas from last year. They got Ben Still, who can play defensive tackle, defensive end. They re-signed him from last year. He had limited snaps. Alex Wright. We're just going to see who ends up with that other outside edge rusher, because Clowney is gone, Chase Winovich is gone, and so somebody's got to take it.
How about now? I'm trying to remember who all they picked up. Juan Thornhill. What do you think of that?
No, that's a home run right there. I think what he's going to do. I did a story on him. I did a profile on him. He won 5 championships in high school. He's a basketball player, a point guard. He won 3 consecutive state championships on his basketball team and 2 in football. Now he's got 2 Super Bowl rings. The guy is nothing but a winner. He's been looking for a place that he can command. He could be the quarterback of that defense. But you put him and Grant Delpit. I mean, last year, the first part of the year, he couldn't tackle his grandma. But after the bye week, somebody taught him how to tackle legs instead of tackling shoulder pads, and he came on. I'm excited to see him and Thornhill work together. Then you got DeAnthony Bell as a backup, and then we'll just see.
What do you think about the signings of Maurice Hurst and Tristan Smith, I believe?
Yeah, their depth, their training camp, we'll see whether they stick or not. I don't know. I mean, you've got to look at who they carried over from the defensive tackle room. Tommy Guy, everybody pushed him around. I don't think he'll make the team this year. I think once he gets through training camp, they're going to figure out that everybody pushes him out of the way. Jordan Elliott, has he played up to his third down draft pick status? Maybe Jim Schwartz can change him, but he had a lot of snaps last year. He was a starter. Finally, he was a starter. I'm not impressed with him. So we've got some issues right there. And Ben Still can play defensive tackle as well. Taven Bryan was on a 1-year contract. He plays for the Colts now. And we'll just see. But those 2 guys, I think, are for competition in training camp. They may stick, they may not. They're going to be kind of the Sheldon Day. I thought Sheldon Day would be a good player for us. He was practice squad for a while, played some live games, come back. That's probably what's going to happen with these 2 guys.
I think one of the most interesting, to me anyway, was the in this draft anyway, was the acquisition of Tillman. I know he's had some injuries in the past and that, but I've watched that kid play a few times, and he looked pretty decent. Do you think he's going to be a decent addition here?
Who is that?
That Tillman. They picked him up.
Cedric Tillman.
Cedric Tillman, yeah.
Oh.
They picked him up at 74, I think it was.
Yeah. The wide receiver from Tennessee.
Yeah.
He was hurt last year. He only played in 6 games. But his junior year, he had over 1,000 yards and 12 touchdowns. However, look at the Browns roster. They've got, including Michael Woods, who's on IR, before they drafted him, they had 14 guys playing receiver.
Yeah, I saw an article about that this afternoon, as a matter of fact.
I mean, we've
got
15 receivers on the Browns right now. 15. Why are we picking another one? I would have loved to see Simpson, the linebacker from Clemson, go in that spot. It's a need position. Simpson's an absolute stud. I saw Clemson Miami this past year, and Simpson dominated that game. Absolutely dominated. Whether he was a delayed blitz, coverage skills are great. He doesn't miss tackles. I think he went to the Ravens, so we're going to see him twice a year anyway. But I just don't understand if we got all these receivers, I mean, you think about it. You got Mari Cooper and Donovan Peoples-Jones, so that's a given. Okay, then you traded for Elijah Moore. Then you signed Marquise Goodwin, right? Well, there's four. Last year in the third round, you drafted David Bell, who had all these Big Ten accolades, first team this, first team that, for 2 years in a row. He's first team all Big Ten. That's not a shady conference. That's not the MAC or the USA conference. It's a huge conference. You got David Bell, and David Bell's only getting 2-3 passes a game. Anthony Schwartz was a third round pick. Demetric Felton is not a running back anymore. He's in the wide receiver room. I mean, we got all these guys. Mike Harley Jr. Was a stud at Miami, a receiver, had all these big numbers, and we're bringing in another receiver. Why? Why do you have all these guys signed, and then you sign another one? So if you've got all these guys, you're only going to start 3, maybe 4, and if you start 4, you got to do without either the tight end or the running back. And if you start 5 and have 5 wide, then there is no tight end and no running back.
Mm-hmm. Well, you got Dalen Baldwin too, who didn't do too bad when he was in last year.
That's true. And Stevenson, I mean, the list goes on and on and on and on. I did a story on it. Why? And once we picked Tillman, I tweeted out, why? Why are we bringing in another receiver? I just don't understand it. And it's not like he had huge numbers last year. I think he had 427 yards last year, 3 touchdowns. That's nothing to write home about. But if you look at his junior year, he had over 1,000 yards. But that Tennessee air raid offense has that type of effect where receivers and pass catchers can get big numbers. But I just wasn't impressed with it. I thought we needed other positions. We needed maybe a defensive tackle. We needed a linebacker, maybe another safety that we could, train to be the dime or the nickel. I just didn't understand it.
Well,
but
when you come down to it, there was a couple of wasted trades. That quarterback that they picked up, he'll never see the field.
Well, he's a running quarterback, and that's what they need. You take last year, they had Josh Dobbs as their backup quarterback behind Jacoby Brissett until Deshaun Watson came. Then they cut Dobbs. So that's what they feel about Dobbs. They didn't keep him last year. They didn't develop him. They didn't put him on practice squad. Well, they did put him on practice squad, and somebody claimed him. But if they thought Josh Dobbs was just such a great quarterback, why didn't they keep him all year? Why didn't they keep him as their number 3 quarterback? They cut him. So we're doing a story right now. I'm asking the question, if Deshaun Watson doesn't come back and be this 3-time Pro Bowl player, then what? If he gets hurt, then what? But the quarterback that they drafted is a running quarterback. He's an option quarterback. So, but let me tell you what about all these draft picks. They're all developmental picks. They were drafted not to start, except maybe Apu from the defensive tackle from Baylor. They weren't drafted to be starters this year. They were drafted to be depth players and to develop for future years, 2024, 2025. So don't look at the draft and saying, well, crap, we don't have any starters there. Yeah, we got maybe one. Tillman's not going to start. I mean, he'll get, 3 or 4 passes thrown to him a game like Bell does, but that eliminates Bell. That eliminates the development of Bell. I just don't understand why they drafted Bell, and then you bring in another third round guy, and then the year before that they drafted Schwartz. That's 3 years in a row they drafted a wide receiver in the third round, and none of them have any snaps, and none of them seem to be any good.
I don't think they believe in Schwartz. That's the problem. They don't believe in Schwartz. And just a thought on the quarterback, like we were talking before the show, I think Bill Musgrave, who they brought in as like a senior offensive assistant, should specifically be focus on DTR, we'll call him, because I forget his Dorian is his name. But he should focus on just specifically coaching Dorian to develop him to be able to be ready for the following year when Dobbs is gone, because they signed him only to a 1-year contract.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, usually the backup quarterback is on a 1-year contract. That's just the way it is. Even when Baker Mayfield went to Carolina and he went to the Rams, he was on a 1-year contract with them. They want to develop him. They want him to hone his running skills, because that's basically what he did. Is, when you go to the NFL, you've got to go through your progressions. You can't look at your main your receiver, and then run. You've got to have your second, your third receiver, and hopefully even your running back in the flats. You've got to be able to go through all those. You got to be able to go through them quickly. You've also got to be able to read a defense, and reading a defense in college is different than reading a defense in the NFL, because there's so many coverages that disguise what they're really doing, especially with the safeties. And when a lot of defenses are running these 4-2-5s, that makes it even more difficult when you're throwing the ball, because you've got so many either cornerbacks or safeties on the field. But yeah, he was drafted to develop, and hopefully he'll be Deshaun's backup in 2024 and going forward. But we will see.
I mean, who knows what the coaching is going to be in 2024 in future, because Stefanski is definitely on the hot seat. I mean, if he starts off 0-5, there's a good chance he'll be gone. So it'll be interesting to see where what the coaching will be, and if they keep a semblance of the offense under new coaching if Stefanski does go.
Yeah. Well, let me ask y'all both one thing. If the Browns do not make the playoffs this year, will Stefanski stay?
No.
He won't be here.
Yeah.
We'll
see, we're all in agreement with that.
Because
I think that's the standard. What's this, his 4th year?
Yeah.
I think what it comes down to with him is the ownership wants this team at least going through the playoffs and into the Super Bowl. They're the way they're looking at this, it's now or never. And
they also want stability.
But on the other hand, I don't know that I'm kind of torn with that answer, to be honest about it. Because if you look at where Haslam came from, he was part owner of the Steelers there for a while.
Yeah, he was.
And he saw that dynasty over there, and he saw where the stability was, especially when you keep a coach like Tomlin for as long as they have.
Yeah.
I think that's giving him a little more patience than what one would think. If Stefanski completely fails or goes, if they're not 10-7 this year, I think he'd be in the hot seat. But if it's close to that, he's probably going to be here.
But using the Steelers model at the same time, look at he fired Freddie Kitchens, which Freddie Kitchens deserved, and Rob Chudzinski after a year. I don't think Chudzinski deserved to be fired after a year. But, so he doesn't keep stability with coaches. So is he giving Stefanski an extra chance because he doesn't want to fire a coach and keep the cycle going of firing coaches every 2-3 years or 1 year?
I think he could have very well been fired this past year if they had not traded for Deshaun Watson. Because you look at the records under Stefanski, they won 11 games his first year. He was coach of the year. The second year, they won 9 games. Last year, they won 7. Well, doesn't that sound like we're going in reverse?
Yep, it does.
Like his first year, he should have gone 6 and 7 wins, and the next year, 8 or 9 wins. In the third year, 11 wins, and he's up and up. That's what happened with Belichick with the Browns. Belichick didn't start off good with the Browns. And a lot of coaches don't do well their first year because you think about it, if they're coming into a team and the other guy got fired for a reason. And that's because his team sucked. Bill Parcells, when he coached the Giants the first year, he was their linebacker coach, got elevated to head coach. He was 3-12-1. He ended up coaching and winning 2 Super Bowls, took the Jets to the AFC to the Super Bowl. The AFC Championship, took the Patriots to the Super Bowl. He built the Cowboys back up. So he is a team builder, but his first season, he was 3-12-1. So you have to be patient with these guys, but I think continuity is important. But if the Browns had not signed Deshaun Watson, I don't think Stefanski will be here today. But when they hired Jim Schwartz, if they fire Stefanski and he doesn't make the playoffs, I can tell you that Schwartz will move into the head coaching job.
I've thought that all along. I've thought
Makes
that
sense.
ever since the day they hired him. The thing that I'm looking at too is, you had such distractions last year. There's with all that crap that was going on with Watson, the 11-game suspension and all that.
Right.
There was no way we were going to get in the playoffs. You just had to figure that from the get-go. But
Well, if you look at the games, we had a chance to beat the Chargers twice. We had a chance to beat the Falcons. We had a time issue with the Jets. We had the Jets game 1.
Yeah.
All Nick Chubb had to do was down it at the 1, and by the time we ran our downs, kicked a field goal, the Jets would have 5 seconds left to score 4 points. So we had that game 1. There was about 4 games that they could have won and should have won, and that was just I don't know, bad coaching, bad play calling, and then we would, like the Steelers were 29th against the run, and we barely ran against them. We ran in the first quarter, and that was it. So just questionable calls throughout the season.
It's the lack of common sense in the play calling for Stefanski. That's where I have a problem with it, because he doesn't, like you said, the first quarter they'll run, but then he picks his spots, and he picks the wrong spots to throw.
Yeah. Do you know what scripted plays are?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the first quarter is all scripted plays. That's why if you notice, just about every game, our first drive, we'd go down there and score a touchdown. Scripted plays. Mm-hmm. Once he got off the script, he didn't know what to do. Now, why is he calling plays going forward? I don't understand that.
I agree. Sorry, I didn't mean to talk over you.
No worries.
Let me interject something here. As far as last year and the last couple of years, I've been saying, I've been saying until I was blue in the face that flipping
Woods,
the defensive coach, needed fired.
Joe Woods
needed to be gone, and they kept him, and they kept him, and they kept him, and then all of a sudden I start watching the special teams, and there was about as lackluster as anything you'd ever want to watch.
Yeah.
So I said then, I thought it's time for Prefer to go. Now they evidently saw this because of the simple fact they fired both those coaches.
Right.
You brought in Bubba Ventrone, which is going to be wonderful here.
It is.
And you brought in Schwartz, and I think that's going to be. I think we're going to have something here as far as the coaching. I blame a lot of last year on those two coaches. Stefanski had his part because of the play calling. I thought some of that was just plain dumb.
Here's something every coaching staff must have. They must have an asshole. Yeah. And they haven't had one until Schwartz showed up. Schwartz isn't going to take any prisoners. He isn't going to take any gruff. He's not going to take any excuses. If you got a nice guy like Stefanski, you have to bring in a drill sergeant. You have to bring in an asshole. And that's what Jim Schwartz is. He everywhere he's been, his defenses have been top 3, top 5. He has led the league in sacks every year. Another thing he does is all his cornerbacks play man. They get safety help over the top, but they play man, no more zone. But they only rush 4 predominantly. Once in a blue moon, they'll send a 5th guy. But what he wants is that front 4 to put the pass rush on so that his linebackers are free to cover tight ends and running backs coming out of the backfield. If you're constantly having to rush 5 and 6, that leaves a big hole in the middle as far as pass coverage goes. That puts more pressure on your safeties to come down instead of playing center field. That's how Jim Schwartz is going to make this defense go. Is the cornerbacks are going to play man, and the front 4 are going to do all the pass rush, all the run stoppage. The defensive tackles, they have to protect the linebacker. What Joe Woods did is, I'd say 92% of the time, he played the 4-2-5. Well, what does that do? That puts 2 linebackers, and maybe one of them is a safety, but that puts 2 linebackers that are spread out between the guard and the tackle. That leaves the middle wide open. There's no middle linebacker there. There's no defensive tackle or nose tackle there. That's why everybody ran against the Browns last year, because they played that 4-2-5. They were so afraid of covering the pass that they gave up the run defense. And that's why we've got all these new guys, and that's why we've got to have this defensive tackle position solved.
You talk about the possibly like with Joe Woods' defense last year, having a safety come up and kind of play linebacker. It was actually a cornerback. It was Greg Newsome, and that's why Newsome was unhappy, because Newsome came out and said a couple weeks ago, I wasn't happy under Joe Woods because he had me playing linebacker instead of playing corner. And also another problem with the Joe Woods defense, having the corners play, 10 yards off the line of scrimmage. You can't do that.
Oh, I do a column after every game called Brownies and Frownies. So I write about who played well and give them a brownie, who played horrible, I give them a frowny. Then I do milk bones, which are played some good and had some mistakes. Every time we played Cincinnati, the pass defense got a frowny because I looked at the tape and I looked at all his passes. If he caught 15 passes, we were 12 and 15 yards off. All Jamar Chase did to gain his 127 yards or whatever it was that he had each game, he'd run 7-yard outs. Well, you do 7, 7, 7, 8, 6, 9, it adds up. They were so afraid that he'd go down the field and burn them that they were giving him these short passes, and it all added up. And all Cincinnati did was march down the field, get in close, then they'd run the ball in.
For those of you just tuning in, welcome to Nanosecond Podcast. We're talking to Barry Shuck from Dawgs by Nature and Fox Sports Radio. Going into a little bit of back to the draft a little bit. Reportedly, they signed Ronnie Hickman from Ohio State. What if that is true? What do you think of that signing?
Well, he went undrafted. He was an undrafted free agent. I think that they're looking for special teams help. I don't think they're necessarily looking for safety help. I think Hickman, if he has a good camp, I think he could be that fourth safety. Now, with Joe Woods, they would keep 5 safeties initially because, like I said, he played the 4-2-5, and he wanted a lot of times there'd be 3 corners and 2 safeties, so he needed extra safety help. That's when he would keep Richard LeCount around. But we've got DeAnthony Bell. We've got Bubba Bolden, who was on practice squad last year. We've got Thornhill. We got Delpit. Now we got Hickman. I think Hickman could actually make this team if he has a good camp. But if nothing else, he could be a beast on special teams.
Let me.
Go ahead.
I want to. I'd like to address something else in that particular realm. What do you think of them taking the fifth-year option of Willis?
Well, I love hindsight. Um, I would have married somebody else if I had hindsight. Uh, I would have bought Apple stock in 1984.
Oh, my bad.
Oh, what was that? Is that is
I
that is that the neighbor? Tell them we're busy.
No, yeah, sorry. I was trying to look through to get a list, ask you about a player
Yeah,
through my or a list that I posted on Facebook, and that I didn't realize I didn't have my volume down.
gotcha.
Sorry,
All right,
sorry, interrupting.
all right,
But
that's all right. But I know about rude neighbors.
oh,
So, what
yeah.
was the question?
Um, there was a couple guys that they allegedly signed in uh, undrafted free agency. I get they probably won't pan out, but
Well, sometimes they do. I mean, DeAnthony Bell was an undrafted free agent last year out of the University of West Florida, and he made the team. In fact, they are really high on him. He's a special teams demon, but they're expecting him to take meaningful snaps this year. Not that he'll take it away from Thornhill or Delpit, but he could be that next safety coming in. And he was an undrafted free agent last year, so they do contribute.
how about Jonah Martin from Washington at D end? Do you know anything about him?
I do not. I don't know anything about him.
Or Lonnie Phillips from Kansas? Uh,
No,
Both
no.
defensive ends.
Right now, I haven't even looked at the undrafted free agents. I do a series on all the draft picks. I did one on Cedric Tillman. I did one on Abu. I just finished one on Dwan Jones, and now I'm working on Isaiah McGuire. And I go from their high school years all the way up to the time they were drafted. But as far as undrafted guys, I haven't even looked at the list yet.
What do you think of the Isaiah McGuire pick? I don't think we've touched on that.
Well, he was projected to be in the 80s. That's where he was projected to go. So for us to get him as late as we did, it's great. He was a 4-year starter at the University of Missouri. He actually played with Jordan Elliott. He was a freshman when Elliott was a senior, but McGuire played all 4 years. He didn't start all 4 years, but he played meaningful games. They didn't redshirt him in his rookie year, his freshman year. First 2 years, he barely played. Junior season, he just jumped off. In his last 2 years, he had over 90 tackles and 14.5 sacks in 2 seasons. I think he's going to be a beast. Now, is he going to play? Like I said, these draft choices are developmental. I think that, like Alex Wright played 49% of snaps last year. Isaiah Thomas played 14% of snaps last year. They are going to get more playing time this year. That was their rookie season. I see McGuire getting what Thomas got last year and coming in and playing about 140, 160 defensive snaps, maybe playing on special teams quite a bit, and then getting just some playing time on the defense and learning the speed of the pro game, because it's a lot different than college.
Didn't Thomas get hurt? And that's in like the last preseason game. That's why he didn't play a lot.
Yeah, and then he came back, and but he got to play, I think, 162 snaps last year, and they were all towards the end of the season. And Wright played quite a bit. I was surprised that he could get a blow for Clowney, and he came in quite a bit and played as far as a rookie goes. But he was drafted pretty high too. I fully expect Wright to be the starter on that side.
Do you see Rochelle as a possibility to make this team? I think it's Isaac Rochelle or something, who was on the team last year.
I think they cut him already.
I thought they sent him back. Okay, my bad.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think they cut him last year.
Oh, okay. Never mind then.
Yeah.
Let's
What is your favorite draft pick?
I think McGuire, and then probably second. I think probably the quarterback, if they could develop him right. I think he could be a really good, if they could fix his accuracy problem, and I think that's his only problem. Then, I think he'd be a good pick, or that he's gonna be a good pick. And then, of course, they drafted that kid from Ohio State, that giant offensive lineman, Jones.
Yeah, I cover the Senior Bowl every year, and he was only there the first day of practice, which was they practice in pads Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. He was only there on Tuesday, and then he was gone the rest of the week. I never found out why he was gone. I think they just didn't want to feed him.
Yeah. As I forget if it was Andrew Barry or Jim Schwartz. I think it was Andrew Barry called him the human orca.
Well, do you know what his nickname is?
What?
At Ohio State, they gave him the name the Big Thanos.
Oh,
Off the Marvel character.
okay. Yeah, there's a talk show host in Cleveland that works for the Browns that calls them that, and I'm like, where did he get that from?
Yeah,
But, that makes sense.
they gave that to him. Now Jones has got a really good backstory. When he was 12 years old, he was 6 foot tall, but he was only 8 pounds when he was born. But he just grew. He just shot up. But he wanted to play in the NBA. And as a freshman, he quit his high school team and focused on basketball exclusively. Go onto YouTube and type in DeJuan Jones, Ben Davis High School basketball. The dude is like a young Shaquille O'Neal, not as tall, but with the big burly body that nobody wants to mess with and everybody gets out of the way. And what's prevented him from pursuing basketball in college was when he played football, he got, I think, 16, 17, 18 offers. And we're talking about Florida, Michigan, USC, Ohio State, Indiana, you name it, he got an offer from. But in basketball, he got 2 offers, one from Kent State and one from Ball State, both mid-American conference teams. And he kind of realized, I can go to a D1 football school, or I can go to a D1 entry-level basketball school. And so what he did is he had to focus on one or the other. Now, he took 4 of his 5 visits. He chose Ohio State, although USC pushed for him hard. His mom wanted him to go to USC because she said they have the ocean, they have the weather. She said in Ohio, it's friggin' cold. But he chose Ohio State. And when his freshman year, he asked the football coaches, I want to go out for the Ohio State basketball team. And they told him no. He said that your time is going to be spent with football, and there's just not going to be any time to do both. And so that was when he gave up basketball. But he was a phenomenal basketball player. Averaged 17 points a game, 9 rebounds, and made Indiana All-State.
I've seen some of the highlights. I was amazed how well he can move for that big.
Absolutely. And loved the game. When he was little, he slept with a basketball.
Wow. That's very interesting.
And at the Senior Bowl, that's all everybody talked about after that first practice was how not only how big he was, but nobody could get around him. I don't care what kind of swim move you had. I don't care what kind of spin move you had. You could not get around him. When he shook my hand, it had just engulfed me. And it's one of those situations where, like I interviewed Luke Musgrave, the tight end who ended up going to the Packers. He's 6'7", and you look up. And with this guy, he kind of cast a shadow over you at the same time you're interviewing him. And not only you craning your neck to look up into him, but just shoulder to shoulder, as big as he is with shoulder pads. He's just a mammoth guy. I bet you he wears a size 24 shoe.
Wow, that's
my guess.
What did you think of? I think his name is Cam Mitchell, the corner. He'll probably be a special teamer. The kid out of Northwestern.
Yeah, he's got a good chance of making this team too, because now that Greedy Williams is gone, they need that fourth. They've got AJ Green. They need that fifth cornerback, and I think he could be that kid. So you've got, let's say, Newsome in the slot, Denzel Ward on one side, MJ Emerson on the other side. You got AJ Green, who I think is a good fit for the Browns. He's made some plays. They need that fifth guy to come in and play some nickel, play some dime. And I think he's got a good chance of making this team. He's a good cover guy. He's got a really good speed. And, they're looking for one guy to kind of slide up now that Greedy Williams is gone.
He's going to play extra hard because he's going to compete. Well, not like it'll be for a roster spot, but he's going to compete hard with Greg Newsome because they've known each other. They've been friends since they were 11 years old.
Yeah, true that.
So, and they went to college together. So, he's gonna compete extra hard just to try to be equal to Greg Newsome.
Yeah. And you need depth guys. You need depth guys that's got a lot of experience. He played a lot of college ball, had a lot of college starts, and they need depth guys to come in and develop. And, who knows what will happen next year. I think if he played 15% of snaps this year, that'd be good. He'll probably play special teams a lot. If he could play 15% of defensive snaps, I think that'd be considered a win for him.
Yeah, I agree.
I had there's a couple things. I'd like to change subjects here a little bit, if you don't mind.
All right.
Let's drift around the league a little bit. I heard a thing that I think it was yesterday afternoon. Somebody was talking about how with 32 quarterbacks in the league, thereabouts, there was only 10 of them that took every snap last year. What do you think about that?
Wow, that's a lot of people getting hurt.
Yeah, that's why I'm worried. If Deshaun better have a decent backup. That's all they got to do that here. But,
Well, I thought Case Keenum was a great backup quarterback. At the time, he had 62 NFL starts. He came in for the Browns and won a game. I thought he was a great backup quarterback. Josh Dobbs and Kellen Mond, I think they've got 3 NFL starts between the both of them. They played a lot in preseason, but as far as regular season games, I think the Browns are in trouble if Deshaun goes down. What happens if Deshaun just has lost his Pro Bowl edge? He's got to have a great season. He's got to have that right off.
Have you seen him lately?
No, I haven't.
He is bulked up something fierce.
They
really
praise
good.
him. They praise him.
He looked really good. I saw him a couple of days ago on TV.
Yeah, and
he's got. I don't know if his mobility's there, but he's bulked up quite a bit. His arm strength is, his arms are a lot bulkier than they were during the season,
awesome.
Matt.
But his mobility is what made him a great quarterback, is what I thought. I mean, when he was at Clemson, he dropped back like a Lamar Jackson, and then he'd take off, and he'd be 17 yards downfield before anybody knew that he had left the pocket.
Well, in the last 6 games that he played, he had some shots of brilliance, but there was some shots of forget it. I just
Yeah.
hope that's all behind him.
Well, after 3 games, I said to somebody at a game at a sports bar, I said, "Why don't they just put Brissett back in?"
Well, they're paying him that kind of money. They're not going to put him back in.
Yeah, well, I understand that, but Brissett played a lot better in his 11 games than Deshaun did in his 6. I thought Deshaun was a horrible player in those 6 games. I wasn't impressed at all, and his mobility was at a minimum. There were times in the past that he'd take off and they just kind of collapsed the pocket. He didn't have pocket awareness, and he just wasn't a very good escape artist like he had been in the past. The Michael Vick, Lamar Jackson type. That's what he was hired for. That's what he was good at. If you want Deshaun just to throw the ball, then we could have got somebody else, somebody that's a pocket passer. But we got him for his mobility, and I just didn't see it in those 6 games when he came back.
I don't think he was just mentally ready, or physically really ready, for after 700 games. I think he was, like I said, just wasn't ready to play at full speed even through 6 games after being off for 700 days. That really put him behind. At least this offseason, he's able to do more stuff. Unfortunately, they lost the receiver, Michael Woods, because of the stuff that he was doing with the teammates. But he's able to do more stuff. Like, he had them down to Texas, or no, I think it was Texas, and then they're going to go to the Bahamas in between the mini camp and training camp.
Yeah, well, they need a guide. I know the Bahamas pretty well. I'll show them where to go. I'll show them the best places to eat.
I was just thinking the same thing.
Hey, we'll go together.
I'd go to the Bahamas with him.
Yeah, I mean, you could be the driver, and I could be the scout and the tour guide. So
right.
Yeah, we got it covered. We'll bring crawfish.
Let's go rent a bus.
Yeah. There you go.
Did you guys see that the first week of training camp's going to be down at a resort in West Virginia?
Yeah, we saw that, or I saw that.
Well, that's in your neck of the wood, Pat, isn't it?
Yeah, it's pretty much right over the border. It's close to like Charleston.
Okay.
And it's a resort over there. They built a resort to try to attract football teams to, so it's a really decent facility by the look of it.
To have their camps there?
Yeah, they're gonna have their camp there for a couple of weeks. Then they're gonna go out. There's another. I can't remember who they said they were gonna play. They were gonna go visit for a couple of weeks. And
like the Eagles. The Eagles last year.
Yeah.
Since they went to 3 preseason games, that's the new norm. They're going to have scrimmages with another team, and that's how they're getting in their extra live game time.
I feel like they should do multiple of those. Because, look at how physical Philadelphia was last year. Right. They did multiple scrimmages. I forget what they call them. There's a technical term.
With other teams?
Yeah. I think they should do multiple of those because that'll get them more ready for the season.
Yeah. Well, that's the only time they actually get any live tackling in because they don't do live tackling anymore.
I think the idea of having them playing playing the Hall of Fame game I like the idea of that. I'd almost like to get tickets.
Yeah, well, that's a 4th game back in the day when they played 4 preseason games. That was a 5th preseason game. But they have to get in those live scrimmages. Otherwise, they won't have any live contact because otherwise it's your offense versus your defense every day. This kind of mixes it up and gives you a new team and a new roster to go against.
From what I understand, they're going to do that stuff. I think it's 2 weeks in West Virginia, then they're going to be on the road for a week or so, and then it's going to be middle or late August before that. I think they said they'll be back right before the 17th, which is the first actual the actual.
It'll be a week. A week in West Virginia that runs up to the game, the Hall of Fame game, and then they'll go back to Berea after the Hall of Fame game.
They're supposed to go back to Berea the 17th, or right before the 17th. I heard that. I heard that on one of the sports shows earlier today.
You know, when a team goes to a training camp like that, it's a huge move. They've got all kind of not only equipment but just the people that they travel. It's not just coaches, and it's not just players. It's personnel, it's trainers, it's doctors, it's on and on and on. They'll take 50, 60 people, and all this stuff that they got to box up and take with them. It's a huge move, and that's why teams kind of went from going from a training camp at a college to making their own facilities. I can remember back in the 90s, I went to the Jaguars training camp and spent a week there. It was in Jacksonville. They didn't go anywhere. Everybody else was at some college, some other remote place. Like I remember the Saints, they always went to Wisconsin, and the Cowboys always go to California. But they would go to northern, more environments where it'd be a little cooler or, less hot and whatever, less humidity, that's for sure. But teams quit doing that. They started building their own facilities. That's why the Browns built their facility out in Berea. I think Art Modell built that, didn't
he? Yeah,
did.
Yeah, he spent a lot of money on it.
And they're talking about in part of the stadium renovations, they're gonna redo a lot of Berea too, from what I understand.
Mm-hmm. They bought up the whole neighborhood adjacent to it, other than two properties, which the owners of the properties were kind of fighting them. But I think eventually money will allow them to be able to.
They're gonna They want to do a world-class facility there.
Mm-hmm.
I've gotten two more quarterbacks I want to ask you about, and then I'll let Erik in here. Number one, what do you think of Aaron Rodgers going to the Jets? Good, bad, or indifferent?
Well, it was obviously the Packers were kind of done with him, and I think he felt that. I think his options were to retire or to continue to play, and obviously he's got nothing else going on in his life, so he decided that he still wants to play, and as long as he feels that he's an elite guy and can play it on an elite level, then go for it. Now, he gave the Jets this big old long laundry list of players that he wanted. I think he got one off that list. He didn't get OBJ, and he didn't get the tight end that he wanted, which the tight end that he wanted was a blocking tight end anyway, Mercedes Lewis. But I think the Jets and the Detroit Lions are going to be the two teams to watch this year. I think they're going to be the most entertaining to see if they can develop and progress a little bit. But the Jets, I would pick them for Hard Knocks on HBO. They're definitely going to be intriguing, but they gave up the farm. I just hope he stays there for at least 2 years, because it doesn't look like he can necessarily play. He can play 1 year. Now, if they start off bad, there's going to be a lot of questions raised. But Saleh is a good head coach. He's a good defensive coach. He's got that defense where it needs to be. The only problem is where is that offense going to be? We all know about Garrett Wilson, a phenomenal receiver from Ohio State. Killed the Browns last year. They got a good running back in Breece Hall before he got hurt. So if the offensive line, they drafted an offensive lineman this year. Now, they didn't pick up the fifth-year option on Micah Becton today, so he's probably going to be out the door soon. But if they can keep Aaron Rodgers upright, I think he'll have a good year.
So before we talk USFL and XFL a little bit, what do you think? Do you think the Browns will go after Isaiah Simmons from the Cardinals because they did not pick up the linebacker? They didn't pick up his 5th-year option.
I would. I loved him. I see a Clemson game every year live. I got a buddy of mine that's season ticket holder, and I fly to South Carolina and we go to a game. Simmons was a beast in college. Now, you haven't really heard about him much with the Cardinals. The Cardinals have struggled on defense. He hadn't made any Pro Bowls. They must not be in love with him, but I'd love to see him in Cleveland.
Yeah, I would too. They need linebackers. I mean, and the linebackers they have are all coming off of injury.
Yeah, and you take like Jacob Phillips. He was a beast as far as physique last year, but the dude just cannot cover worth nothing. He takes a long time to recognize passing plays, and he's slow getting out to the tight end. I don't like him at all. You know, JOK was having a great season till he got hurt. Anthony Walker till he got hurt. Taki is a special teams demon. He's probably the best cover guy, and he's a decent tackler. But I was really shocked that the Browns didn't draft a linebacker. I thought they were. Third round would have been a great place to grab one, but they did get a linebacker, but he's a special teams guy. So I think we're in trouble as far as linebackers go. And you see what happened last year. Players got hurt. It was thin. We were down to second and third team guys, and, you know, we kind of fell apart.
I've got a two-part question, and then
All right.
I'll let Erik finish it up here.
Does that pay more?
Yeah, it does. Well,
Okay, great.
We're going to double your salary.
Bonus round.
Two players I want your impressions of and where they went.
Okay.
Number one is, of course, OBJ. And number two, what do you think about my all-time favorite quarterback, Baker Mayfield, going to Tampa Bay and saying, I ain't no Tom Brady.
Yeah. Well, nobody wants to follow Tom Brady. Nobody wanted to follow Joe Montana. You know, when you have a great player like that, nobody wants to be the one and step in their shoes. I don't know who played past Jim Brown. I mean, who was the running back that stepped in? Was it Leroy Kelly? He ended up being pretty good. He's no Jim Brown, but he ended up being a great running back. So anytime you got a great player like that, it's hard to step in their shoes. As far as Baker goes, wish him all the luck. I enjoyed watching him with Los Angeles last year. I don't root against him. I hope he has a great career. You know, he's almost been a vagabond since the Browns let him go. I mean, he didn't stay at Carolina and he got cut. He didn't play long in Los Angeles. They didn't re-sign him. So if this go in Tampa does not work, what I see for him next is either being somebody's backup, and that's his career, like Case Keenum, just be a career backup from the rest, or we're talking about CFL, XFL, USFL. If we see him in one of those leagues going forward, it wouldn't shock me a bit.
So before we get into the two leagues that you mentioned, you had mentioned about Jacob Phillips and then Jordan Elliott earlier. I personally think that it came down to maybe the coaching a little bit. I mean, I get there's talent issues maybe with them, but I think it came down to the coach wasn't coaching. The coach wasn't teaching them. Joe Woods wasn't teaching them, and I know Chris Kiffin and whatever the linebackers coach's name is, it was it's their job to specifically coach them, but that's partially on Joe Woods too.
Yeah.
And
Well, they're gone now.
yeah, well, wait, is Tarver gone? The
No.
linebacker coach?
No. Mm-mm.
Oh, okay.
Kiffin.
Is okay. But what are your takeaways from the XFL and USFL? Do you have any?
Well, DC looks really good. I got a friend of mine that plays kicker for them. He was the kicker on the Browns practice squad, Matt McCrane.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was the Browns kicker. He almost came in for Cody Parker in a game that he was dressed and ready, and he was on the active roster. And Cody Parker at the last minute said, "Hey, I can go." He's had a roller coaster of a career, and he's played for the Steelers. He's played for Arizona Cardinals. I think he should have been a starter all this time, but DC looks good. You know, both those leagues have one function, and that's to develop talent, develop coaches. That's why you got somebody like Todd Haley, who's head coach now in one of those leagues. Wade Phillips has been an NFL head coach, and he's a head coach there. But it's a way to get assistant coaches jobs and to get these players that were teaching school and coaching high school and was real estate agents and working at banks, and they want to keep their career going. And it may do. The Browns picked up the USFL as the Defensive Player of the Year last year, Chris Odom, who I thought would make the team. He got hurt. They didn't re-sign him. But then you got people like their MVP got played all year for the Dallas Cowboys. So, if you got a need and you see these guys and they get put up good stats. Now, I had an interview set up with Josh Gordon of the Seattle Dragons, and 1 week became the next week, and finally I just sent an email to their PR, says, look, you know what, it was not topical anymore. He was 13th in the league in receiving, whereas if I had talked to him the first or second week, then it's a topical situation for Browns readers and listeners that, hey, this is Josh Gordon. Remember him, that one season he had that was so great. This is what he's doing now. This is what he's got to say. But when you're 13th in the league, nobody cares, because that doesn't mean that he's going to be signed with anybody.
Their quarterback was with the Seattle's quarterback was with the Cowboys for, I think, all the preseason.
Yeah.
DiNucci.
Yeah. Well, that's the way the entire league is both of those leagues. Now, I got something else for you. You remember the Arena Football League? Yeah, and they're bringing it back. They're bringing it back. I'm interviewing the commissioner next week. His name is Lee Hutton. Where do they get all these players?
I'll tell you, I have a friend up here that, it's not a friend, it's more or less an acquaintance. There's a guy that owns a local comedy club here that his sons played football, and he's going to the Arena Football. I think it's Jacksonville. It's a Florida team he's going to.
Okay.
And I can't remember. I can't think of where he's actually a. Hang on a second. Let me ask my wife. What nationality is Pete? He's what? Lebanese. That was it. Yes. He's a Lebanese kid, and he's got some awards in that up here. He's just fresh out of high school, but I saw the other day that they signed him for down there.
Yeah, he didn't play college?
No.
Yeah. Well, they have open tryouts, and sometimes these leagues you have to pay a fee to try out. That's the short-lived Major League Football when they were in Mobile, Alabama. You had to pay a fee to try out, and then they designated you to a team. Now, I don't know, but in the past, the Arena Football League had individually owned teams, and the way the USFL and the XFL work is they are league-owned teams. So the league does everything. If one team is dominating the other, they can pull a player from one team, like a pass rusher, stick him on another team. Or if a team is decimated on the offensive line, you've got another team that's got a nucleus and a backlog of offensive line, and they stick them on there. So but I wonder if that's a way to make the standings form to be what they want it to be for the bigger markets, especially if you got teams that are like in San Antonio. San Antonio's got the sixth largest TV market in the United States. Six. And that's more than 23 NFL teams. But yet their team is not doing so well. So maybe they build that up. They lead the league in attendance every time. So if you want these big houses and keep San Antonio in the playoffs, then let's build their team up and make them better. That's the only thing I don't like about League O team. I'm not sure how the Arena League is going to be. That's one of my questions to the commissioner when I talk to him next week. Is this going to be individually owned? But from what I understand, there are going to be 16 teams in the Arena League. I like the Arena League. I've seen a lot of games live. I've seen a lot of games on TV. The net system is trademarked by their league. Now, there are 7 indoor football leagues in the United States and Canada. None of them can use that net system.
What do you mean by net system?
If you've seen the Arena League, they've got the nets at each end.
Yeah.
Okay, so what the nets do is they kick off from the goal line, and it hits either the right side or the left side of the nets, and it's live once it still hits the net. Then you play it off the carom, and then the goalpost for field goals is in the middle of the net, and it is narrow. It is real narrow. It's probably a third of what an NFL spread is like on the goalpost. But that's the net system right there. I don't think passes can be caught off the net, but it's made. There are no punts, so it's made to where the ball on kickoffs, it's a live thing, because the guy who kicks it off kicks it farther than where the stadium is, because it's a hockey rink. And so they have this net system, but that's trademarked, and they hang from the ceiling, and they're real taunt, and that's part of their game. It's like the CFL. When you kick off into the end zone, it's live. You can't down it in the end zone. You have to run it out. They've got 25-yard end zones because their league and their sport came from rugby, and rugby has 25-yard end zones. And if you get tackled in there, it's 1 point for the other team. So you have to run it out. Well, in the Arena League, you have to play it off the net. And of course, if it comes off the net the way the football is shaped, doesn't mean it's like a round ball that you throw against the wall and it comes right back to you. It goes whichever direction that it wants to. And it's a live ball. So the other team can try to jump on it. But that's the stick of the Arena League, is their net system is trademarked and only they can use it. All these other indoor leagues, they don't have nets at all. They just squib kick on kickoffs or pooch kick, and they try to keep it inside the stadium because all the kickoffs are on the goal line.
It's an amazing experience to go to a arena football game. I went to the arena football championship game when the Cleveland Gladiators were in it.
Oh yeah.
Of course,
yeah.
They lost like 75-30, but but it was an amazing experience.
Yeah. I did a story on the Cleveland Gladiators a couple of years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's awesome.
There was another arena Cleveland team before that. I can't remember what they were called. But I did a full profile on the Gladiators. Their owner lived in South Florida, their original. And that was part of the problem. He didn't he didn't keep up with the daily grind of running a professional football team.
I remember that team, and I can't think of the name of it.
There's been two versions of the Gladiators, because
Yeah,
originally they were brought back, or
yeah,
they were. I thought Dan Gilbert started them, but
yeah,
then was losing money, so he sold to somebody, and then they went out when Rocket Mortgage Fieldhouse was doing the renovations,
right.
and they couldn't find somebody else
Yeah,
like another arena to play in.
that's probably it. Because I think Gilbert owned all these other teams, and he just added the Gladiators to his menu.
Oh yeah. But interesting thing I saw with the USFL, I haven't been able to watch games, but I saw they have these sensors on top of the goalpost that measure the wind instead of like having where the in the NFL they just have flags that they judge, the
Right.
kickers have to judge. They have sensors that feed the sideline to tell them the wind information.
Yeah, yeah, that's an innovation. Um,
Mhm.
it's the XFL has a working relationship with the NFL. They have kind of a partnership.
Mhm.
They want to train coaches. They want to train referees. They want to try things out to see
Mhm.
if they work. And that seems to be one of them. The goalposts have gone through different different things for the since its inception. The original goalposts were H shaped, and they were only 12 foot above the crossbar. That's why when they score a touchdown, that's why the referee lifts up both hands. In rugby, when a player goes over the goal line and scores a try, in rugby the referee lifts one arm straight up, and that lets everybody know that they made the try. But in football, they lift two arms. It's to look like the H goal on a football field. That's why they lift both hands up. It's to have that semblance of the H goalpost. And then over the years, they've added more uprights. And then uh, the last time that they added more uprights was because of Justin Tucker. He had a kick that looked like it went right over the right upright, and they couldn't tell if it was in or out or straight over. If it's straight over, it's considered in, and so they added 10 more feet to it. Those goalposts now, they're called a slingshot goalpost. Have you ever seen how they can drop those?
No.
They have a box at the bottom of the base, and they open this. It looks like part of the turf. They open it up, and they got a handle stored in there, and they take that handle and they attach it, and then they just start wrenching it back and forth, and slowly the goalpost will crank down into the field of play. So anything that they need to do the goalpost, they don't just climb up there or get a cherry picker or a helicopter with a basket on it. They can crank that goalpost down, and
That's pretty slick.
yeah, and it's real interesting. There's a company out of Ohio that builds those, but the idea for a goalpost came from a guy, and I forget his name, but he had a plastic fork that had four pricks on it, and he broke one of them, and he was staring at it, and he went and he broke the other center one, and that's how he got the idea for the slingshot goalpost.
As right before we wrap up, do you have an idiom for us today?
Okay, let's see. I will tell you how X's and O's got started.
Okay.
So in the 1900s, there was a quarterback for Princeton, and he invented a system of devising plays. And what he did is he took checkers and he put checkers for offense and in red, and he put checkers in defense. Then he started transposing those to paper. And so what he did is he would draw circles for the red ones, and he'd draw circles for the defense, and he would color them in. So that went on, and that was kind of the standard. Well, in the 1940s, there was a head coach of Army. He got tired of coloring in these dots, and he substituted the darker ones for X's.
Oh, wow. That's really interesting. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, no worries. It's fun.
Yes, Barry, it's been really nice having you again.
Yeah.
And thanks for coming in with us. Very interesting, very interesting. And,
Yep, it's been a fun day.
we actually have started broadcasting on Rumble, which we had 10 viewers over there.
Yeah.
Really?
During
That's
the
awesome.
show. It's not too bad. We're doing okay with it.
Yeah.
But anyway, I want to thank you personally for coming in with us, and it was nice seeing you, having you here. And until next time, hopefully, don't be a stranger. If you want to come back in, just let us know.
If you're a Browns fan, go to dogsbynature.com. We've got full coverage of the draft, signings, and we've got a full list of all the undrafted free agents. I'm doing a series on every player that the Browns drafted. Today came out with Apu, the defensive tackle for Baylor. 2 days ago, I did one on Cedric Tillman. In 2 more days, I just did the one on DeJuan Jones. So every 2 days, I do a full profile on every Browns pick, starting from their high school years, and interesting tidbits. Like DeJuan Jones is a huge bowler. He's a bowling fanatic. And so every 2 days we got a profile, but it's really good site if you're a Browns fan. Dogsbynature.com. Thanks for having me on.
And also Tuesday nights on Fox Sports Radio. Tune in to him there.
All right. Well, thanks for having me on.
You're welcome.
Y'all have a good evening, and thanks everybody for joining us. No matter what platform you've joined us on, if you find us on Twitter, Twitch, Rumble, anywhere, and you want to drop us a comment, go ahead and do so. We watch out for that stuff. Anyway, have a good evening.
So, as the saying goes, it's time to be like a hockey player and get the puck out of here.
Good morning, good afternoon,